Now, I already own a whole set of primes. I own a 50mm 1.8 lens, I own a 30mm f1.4, I even own a 70-300 telephoto lens. So why would I need to buy a kit lens? See, I bought my camera on its own on eBay quite a few years ago. I never had a kit lens, so I never really understood why people want kit lenses. Like, sure, they're cheap, right? They're tacky, they've got terrible image quality, and they have bad apertures. I always thought that was the case until I bought one. As a video maker and a photographer, image stabilization was something that I need. It is still something that I need. And none of my primes have it. No prime has stabilization. And I think that often gets very overlooked when it comes to lenses. And that is why I bought this, the Canon 18-55mm kit lens. Yeah, I bought a kit lens by choice. I'm going to break this into a quick review of all the features like price range, IS, build quality, just stuff like that. So beginning with build quality. The lens is made out of plastic. There's no easy way to go about that. You can see and you can hear it's cheap, it's plastic. The mount is plastic, everything on it is simply plastic. There's no luxury to this thing. Yet that's kind of what I love about it. It's so lightweight. I haven't even bothered to Google how much this thing weighs because I know that there's no consumer lens this popular that weighs this little. I would put my money on that. This thing weighs nothing and it's so easy to carry around. Once it's on my camera, I don't even notice. That said, the plastic is not awful. I feel like a lot of people don't buy plastic lenses or plastic anything for that matter because they think it will break. I've dropped this a couple of times. Not that much because if you're sensible, you just don't drop stuff. But it's not broken, it's not shattered, it's not melted in the sunlight. Nothing happens. It's plastic, but plastic is stronger than you think. It will be okay. You don't need an entirely metal lens that's just going to weigh you down. So I think, honestly, the plastic is not that big of a deal. Now, moving on to price. This thing, I know, can set some people back up to £150. However, that doesn't have to be the case. I bought this at CEX, which is a sort of second-hand electronics shop in England. I got it for £50, which is not a lot. I've never bought anything to do with the camera that cheap, and I got it for 50 quid. I inspected it in store, and it was great. You can get them on eBay, sometimes even cheaper if you want, and it's really very, very cheap for the amazing quality that it is. Something a lot of people often like to moan about when it comes to kit lenses is the aperture. This lens is a 3.5 aperture at its widest, and no, you're not going to get super blurry bokeh, you're not going to get a nice f1.4 out of focus background. But I use this lens for my Asking London series. I did interviews of people on the street, I held the camera right up to their face, as close as I could get, and as you can see, it was quite a nice out of focus background. The depth of field is pretty good at 3.5, it's not even that bad. Now, the reason I bought the lens is, in simple terms, for the image stabilization. It was so I could get footage that wasn't shaky handheld stuff with a big heavy lens, so I could get just normal smooth footage. I bought this lens for this short film called Parked that I made quite a while back last summer, and the lens was great. It has, I think four stops of stabilization, which means that it's the equivalent of stopping down your shutter 4 times. You can, of course, turn the stabilization off, which every lens offers. I don't know why I'm mentioning that, but I felt the need to because it's there. If you're like me and you're shooting on a crop sensor DSLR, like for example the Canon 60D, which I'm shooting on now, then you'll know that the focal length of the lens on a crop sensor isn't the true focal length. For example, this lens is 18-55mm. And as much as that will be true, it's an APS-C crop lens. It's an EFS lens, which means that it's mainly for the sort of cheaper end of the Canon cameras for crop sensor, which means that if you are using this lens, it won't be 18-55mm. It will more likely be somewhere between 30 and 80mm, which, by an everyday standard, is perfectly wide enough. I tend to shoot at 18mm for everything, all the video I do with this. When I shoot Table Talk, my podcast, I shoot that 18mm on this lens. which would be the equivalent of 30mm on a full frame camera, which is still plenty wide enough for everyday use. So then again, 55mm, which is the full frame equivalent of around 80 because 1.6 times crop, 80mm is getting into sort of portraiture and sub-telephoto, which in one lens is pretty good. The last thing that I wanted to mention about this lens is the image quality. Now, it is a kit lens, it does come with the camera, so it's not going to be the best image quality, it's not going to be the sharpest. There is quite a lot of chromatic aberration, there's slight vignetting, not actually as much as you'd think, but the image quality generally is, I'd rate it good. It's not amazing, it's not what you're going to get with a very expensive L series lens, but it's really not that bad, because you have to think, Canon sells this lens with their cameras. So if everyone bought a Canon camera brand new out the factory and it came with a horrible lens, the pictures would look bad and everybody would complain. So is the quality really that bad? I mean, I took this lens to Iceland a couple of years back. I shot so many landscapes with this because I didn't have a wide angle lens. The widest lens I had was must have been a 50mm prime, the nifty 50, and 50 is just not for landscapes. It's really not. So I bought this lens to do landscapes. I took a lovely picture of a waterfall, I think it's Skogafoss, I butchered the pronunciation. I got lovely pictures of glaciers and geysers and that sort of stuff. It held up really well. I mean, I don't think it's not weather sealed, and it got drenched and it was fine. It took some decent pictures. I even got one of them printed and put up on my wall on a massive canvas, so the quality can't be that bad. Now, in my opinion, the quality of the lens is good. It feels tacky, yes. Is the lens completely waterproof? No, it's not. Is the lens going to give you amazing quality? No. Could you go into the depths of a volcano with this thing? Absolutely not. But it's 50 quid. It gives you a wide angle field of view, it gives you image stabilization, and I think a lot of people really overlook the kit lens. It's really important to not jump straight ahead to a prime. Like, if you seek that blurry background too fast, I genuinely think it's more important to just get to grips with what you have. And for me, that was going back to buy a kit lens, because I never had one. So it just goes to show you get them for a reason. And I really think as long as the video quality or the picture quality is good enough, as long as you watch it and you don't first notice how bad it looks, then it's fine. And it's really not that big of a deal. If you think otherwise, you can go through all of my videos that were shot on this lens and comment how awful they look. But, I mean, please don't do that. Okay, so I've got my phone here and I've actually made a list of famous YouTubers that use this lens, just to prove my point. Okay, you ready? Jack's Films, Will Derbyshire, PewDiePie, Mr Beast, Jack and Dean, Stephen Tries, Will and E, Joe Sugg, Colin Furs, William Osman, Drew Gooden, Craig Baker Photography, Dan and Phil, Jack Howard, Russell Brand, Vsauce, Gus Johnson, Kick the PJ, Will Smith, Crabsticks, David Dobrik, iDubbbz, True Geordie and Casey Neistat. And if it's good enough for Will Smith, it's good enough for me. That's basically my comprehensive review of the Canon 18 to 55mm. That's That's my comprehensive review of the Canon 18 to 55mm lens. I think it's pretty good. I'd love to hear your opinion, please let me know. Subscribe if you want to see more kind of reviews like this. I did one of the Canon AV one before. I'm definitely down to do more. Let me know what you think. Thank you for watching.